spark, the spark, you got it, it's the spark, baby, you got it, it's the spark, baby, you got it, it's the spark, baby, you got it, it's the spark flickering in your heart, hoping you make it.
So Daniel Goleman is this researcher who is a psychologist. He looks at youth and social emotional type of work. And he says that one of the defining characteristics of this generation is that we're dealing with a lot of grief. And to me, I've realized that grief is kind of like a fire. It's something that can be used for very destructive purposes, or like a fire can be used for very constructive purposes as well. This building was constructed with fire. You know, we have a little heat in here today. Later on, after I would do some research looking at grief and trauma, I'd find that one of the most powerful ways to heal from grief is to do something creative with it. And so, again, you know, grief being like this pain, the fire, and if we can use that fire to build and to construct, it can be reciprocally transformative for those of us who are grieving, as well as our communities that can be grieving as well. So using that lens of grief being like a fire, I realized that growing up, I had a lot of fire in my life. I went to 13 different schools before high school. My father was alcoholic. He was abusive, used to beat me and my mom. We would leave in the middle of the night because he just was in a rage, right? And so that in combination with being told out special education and getting kicked out of school and going to drug rehab when I was 14, I had a lot of fire. And I believed the lie from society and the media that said that the reason why I had this grief is because I was the problem. And that the only solution to find some ease from this grief and from this pain was to consume. And so I thought if I had more clothes, more jewelry, more money, more cars, that I would be happy and that I could survive, right? So the job that I had bagging groceries at the grocery store wasn't making me enough money. So I started bagging other kinds of groceries. And I started hustling, but I never felt that contentment. So I thought, well, man, maybe I just need to hustle more. Maybe I just need to party more. And so this fire got to a point where all I wanted to do was burn. I wanted to burn weed. I wanted to burn people. I wanted to make smoke and try to disappear. But I was fortunate that I had someone in my life, which was my grandfather, who could see past all the smoke and all the mirrors. And he could see not only the person that I was, but the person I was capable of becoming, and he treated me like that. He treated me like I might be somebody one day, like I might be a community leader one day, like I might have my life story in a museum as a permanent exhibit one day. He treated me like that when I was a teenager. And I always wondered what he saw, because what I saw in my life was pain. That's all I saw. And before I could catch a reflection of what my grandfather saw, he passed away. He had a heart attack. I was the last one to actually see him alive. But he passed, man, and it hurt me so bad. And I figured that this experience is either going to be the reason why I give up in life and just go crazy, or something was going to have to happen. So I went to the funeral in this huge cathedral. It was packed full of people. Family members, people that I didn't even know. But it was really there that I got to hear my grandfather's story for the first time. I got to hear how the son of immigrants had a dream to want to go and get an education. The people in this community who heard about this dream that he had to go to school, they made fun of him. He still held on to that dream. And he would write his goals and his dreams down in a journal, which I would eventually get that journal one day. But he eventually left the comfort of the farm to confront his destiny. And when he went off to school, he had, one of those old school stories, he had to work 2-3 jobs while going to school full time. And he worked his tail off. and graduated top of his class. And he ended up graduating and getting a decent job. He got a career. And he started sending money back so his brothers and sisters and family members could also have a crack at an education. But what I would find out is that all these strangers who were in this cathedral paying homage to my grandfather are people that he had profoundly touched. Not in some weird Jerry Springer way, but in a way that was a legacy. So during the receiving line, I got to shake hands with people from all colors and all backgrounds, people who wanted to thank me for my grandfather volunteering at their not-for-profit, for serving in the church, for being part of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program, for even giving partial scholarships to them so they could go to college. And I later realized these were some of the grandchildren from the same community that made fun of him for wanting to have an education. And so something clicked at this funeral. I realized that my grandfather had pain in his life, but he had used that pain as fuel to go after his dream. He used that pain as fuel to make a difference in his community, and then it clicked. I remember going outside of that church into the parking lot. It had just rained. And I realized that I wanted to leave a legacy like this as well. And I asked myself this question. If I were to die in 6 months, what would be my legacy? That I could party with the best of them? That I could out-smoke or out-drink anybody? That I was good at robbing people? I realized this is not the legacy that I wanted to leave. And I had a reality check. I realized that I needed to switch up my life. I realized that I needed to stop being so selfish and start using my gifts for good. So it was that day that I decided I was never going to sell weed again. I decided that I was going to get away from the partying and the smoking and the drinking and try to find this path that would be leading me towards my authentic dream and towards leaving a positive legacy.
And this fire was nothing more than the gifts that you got in your personality mixed with your purpose. That's what you're living for, and you gotta know that you had the potential to make it war. All the fires get higher, bringing you peace in the midst of war. It's the spark, baby. You got it. It's the spark. It's the spark, baby.